I try to tell my associates now, there are no stupid questions. I have no idea what you don't know and what you don't understand, and I will teach you and train you and explain it to you because nobody else is going to.
Right.
You have to put in that time to help people understand what it is that they're doing and why they're doing it.
Welcome to another episode of the Power Forward Pod, hosted by the Power Forward Group Financial Advisory Firm. I'm Reuven Lavavi, founder of the firm. Today I'm joined by Michael Dayan, our certified financial planner. In this episode, we're going to be hosting a very special guest that we're really excited to speak to. Mike, you want to introduce our guest?
Yeah, of course. So our guest today is Samantha Koplik, partner in the New York City office of McDermott Will Schulte, where she runs leveraged finance deals for some of the largest private equity firms in the country. California native and NYU Law School grad, Sam has been recognized by the Legal 500 and Euromoney as a leader in her field. In this episode, Sam tells us about her philosophies around leadership and workplace culture, and how she ultimately fulfilled her lifelong dream of becoming an attorney at a big law firm in New York City. Welcome to the pod, Sam.
Thanks very much. So glad to be here.
Love that you sat through New York traffic to get downtown. Our offices are 5 days. Sam came from Midtown to see us. It probably took, 5 subway stops, but how long did it take you by car?
Almost 50 minutes.
Okay.
Brutal today.
Yeah. Fitting for midweek New York.
Yes.
Right?
Yep. Yeah. And Reuven, I know you've shared in the past that you went to law school because I guess you hated math and didn't really know what you wanted to do with your career. Sam, when we met, what really struck out to us was how intentional your path was to becoming an attorney. So we'd love for you to share just a little bit more about your intentionality.
Sure. Well, I was always a nerd growing up. I liked school. I was good at school. My parents used to tease me. They never had to tell me to do my homework. And pretty early on in my life, I decided that I wanted to do something with the rest of my life, with my career, that would require me to use my brain every day. My family, I didn't grow up in a big family of big lawyers. My dad was a personal injury lawyer, ran his own practice, and never worked a night or a weekend, so far different from what we're doing here. But I set out to make sure that the steps that I was taking in my education would support my ultimate goal of being a deal maker, honestly.
Okay.
I knew pretty early on I wanted to be a transactional lawyer. I wanted to negotiate, and I wanted to be in a position of, having to achieve goals for my client, but also help them understand what those goals should be, and help them, shape their deals the way that works best for them in ways that perhaps they, didn't know how to do. So I found myself in New York City for law school, which is the greatest city on the face of the earth, and definitely where you want to be if you want to practice corporate law at a level like this. So it all required quite a lot of work, but very deliberate steps toward getting to the place where I knew that I always wanted to be.
So I think that's awesome because a lot of what we speak about with our clients and attorneys in general is just making intentional decisions versus kind of just what happens along the way. And we find a lot of times just because of the big law structure, the Crevel scale, the safety net, that you have a lot of individuals who are really bright, really smart, and just say, all right, I'm going to take that next step. I'm going to go to law school, become an attorney because, it comes with all those factors. It sounds like you were really intentional about that decision from the beginning. Your father's an attorney, but a different type of attorney, yes. Right? So not what we'll call big law, right?
Yes.
And you want to be a deal maker, right?
Yes.
So where does wanting to be a deal maker come from? Like I remember at OCI, they were like, do you want to be a litigator or transactional? I swear I didn't know what that meant. Like I knew what litigation meant, but I didn't know what that meant.
It's a good question. I think that even when I was very young, I tried to, for lack of a better term, I tried to get my way.
Yeah.
And I wanted to get certain places, and I didn't necessarily want to do it exactly the way that everybody else did it. But if I could convince, someone else to, make a compromise or take a slightly different perspective on something, then I could likely get them around to where I wanted them to be. I convinced my parents to let me go to boarding school when I was in 7th grade because I desperately wanted to be able to take all of the great education I'd had up to that point and apply it going forward toward, the next step. So I think there's always a resolution. I don't think that, there are whether it's personal issues or professional issues, deal issues, I don't think that there's ever anything that can't be solved. I think you have to be really creative, and you have to be persuasive, and you have to understand the other party's perspective. You have to be empathetic.
Right.
And you have to be collaborative about getting to the right solution and be willing to continue to iterate over what is going to work best for everyone involved. But that's sort of been, part of my personality.
Right. So, I mean, you created that environment, right? You had that skill set. Mm-hmm. You negotiated your path with your parents, mm-hmm. and then you created that path for yourself.
Mm-hmm. I also never give up. So
okay.
if I'm not getting where I want to be, or I'm not getting the answer that I want, I'll go at you 25 different ways until I get you to say the things that I want you to say.
Does that come, you think, from your upbringing, or is that kind of more just inbred, just the way you naturally were?
A little bit of both. I mean, I think it's very, very much my personality, but it certainly wasn't, parented out of me, right. So to speak. It was encouraged.
Right. I mean, personal injury lawyer, right? That's a courtroom litigator, right? Your dad's a winner. He's got to be a winner, right?
Yes, although he was also a deal maker.
Okay.
Very much so. In fact, he very rarely went to court and actually tried cases. In fact, when it got to that point, he usually referred those cases out. He was on the phone all day long, talking to counterparties and getting them to
drafting a settlement.
Exactly.
Exactly. Okay, so you come to New York for law school. You come out, starting at Big Law. Was it initially everything you dreamed of, or was it kind of like, all right, I got to put in some grunt work to get to where I want to go?
It was definitely the latter. It was not the dream job immediately. Although part of the reason why I became a finance lawyer and ultimately a private equity lawyer was because I think that the learning curve is steepest, actually for young finance lawyers among the various transactional practices. I think that you start working on day one with these huge contracts, 200, 250 pages, and they look like they're written in English, but they're not. They're written in contract. That's a totally different language. And you have to start learning about different industries and different companies and revenue models and projections from day one. All of that becomes really, really important right at the beginning. And I really liked that angle. I thought I was I was contributing, I was managing some of the process, and I enjoyed the way that the teams that I was working for at that point in time advised clients on how to approach certain issues, where there were weak points in our arguments, where we were asking for something that might be concerning to the other party and how to get around that, and all of that sort of lined up with the types of things that I liked and was good at and wanted to do in my career. And so ultimately I joined the finance group. But it's hard work. It's very, very hard work. And you have to be willing to walk in on day one and say, you know what, I have no idea what 10 of the 20 words in that sentence you just said mean. And I'm going to probably need you to, answer a handful of questions that seem like really stupid questions. But I try to tell my associates now, there are no stupid questions. I have no idea what you don't know and what you don't understand. And I will teach you and train you and explain it to you because nobody else is going to.
Right.
You have to put in that time to help people understand what it is that they're doing and why they're doing it. But at the outset, if you don't ask the question, if you don't put your hand in the air and say, I'm struggling with this concept, or I know you said this about this assignment, but I still don't understand why we're doing it this way, you're never going to really be able to manage those parts of the process yourself. And ultimately, you're not going to be an effective deal lawyer if you can't really understand what you're doing and why, and why the practice of doing deals this way has developed over the years so that this is how we do them.
I imagine that's scary for a lot of people, right? Putting up your hand, especially like a lot of attorneys are historically overachievers, right? Throughout their career, they're the top
gold
of the
star
class,
seekers.
right?
We are all
exactly,
gold star
right?
seekers. I am a proud gold star seeker.
Right? And the first thing you do when you put up your hand is there's an admission of like, I don't know something, right?
Correct.
So was that something you felt comfortable doing? And when you think about, vis-a-vis associates you're working with now, like to foster that environment, how do you share with them, and how do you go about doing that?
It's really, really hard, particularly because not just the fact that in Big Law we're dealing with a lot of people who went to really great schools and have done really, really well for their entire lives, but most of what they've done is individual effort to get an individual result, right? So if you study, you do well on the test. If you don't write the paper, if you cram it in the last minute, then you're not going to do well on that. But that just impacts you. That doesn't impact a whole team, and it certainly doesn't impact a client. Right. So you have to be, I think in a leadership position, you have to be very clear about what the impact on the client is and on the team is of not asking those questions. And then you have to make the process of asking questions not easier, but yield a better result than not. And so I like to say to my associates too, you have to ask the question to understand what you're doing. And I've been doing this for a long time.
Right.
If you deliver work product to me, if you answer a question or draft something or make comments on a document and you don't know what you're doing, you don't understand what the purpose of the assignment is, the subject matter, or the substantive point that you're trying to achieve here, I will know. It will be clear on the page. And I will then think, wow, this person had questions. Really obvious that this person had questions. Why did they not ask me those questions? So then we'll have a conversation, not just about the questions they had, but why they're not asking questions. And I think, that breaks down some of the barriers. And I try to approach it in a, friendly kind of
manner, right?
friendly manner. But I found early in my career that I got better results and I did better substantively if I asked the question, even if I was uncomfortable. Yeah. So you just have to get over yourself sometimes.
Right. I think it's also what you spoke to, creating that environment. We talk about here all the time when we bring on a new advisor. We learn so much about that person by the questions they ask, but sometimes we forget. We're in New York, we're in finance, we move really fast.
Yes.
And sometimes that's to the detriment of everybody else around us. It's like we're like bulls in a china shop. It's like, slow down. We got to make some room, breathe some air, and like actually think through that. So as you began to progress, it sounds like you became a student of the game, a student of your clients. You're at the table, you're learning your skill set, taking that next leap in your career, right? Really having an opinion, being able to offer that. Was that finding mentors? Like how were you able to put yourself in a position where you really were able to grow your own practice?
A lot of different things. I had great mentors that really supported me taking the lead on deals and on deal negotiations and on calls with clients. I prepare so much. It's ridiculous the amount of, I never go into something and not know or not have a reasonable expectation of what the other side's going to say and what I'm going to say in response to that. And understanding what I'm doing and how I'm doing it and why I'm doing it helps make the substantive argument. So I'm not arguing precedent. I'm not arguing, well, this is the way we do it on every deal. Like there's a reason for that. So figure out what the reason is and argue the reason. I think because I was willing to ask questions, I was willing to say early in my career, I need help with this, or I don't understand this, or I'm struggling with this concept. That made the people who were supervising me more willing to trust me. Yeah. They knew I wasn't going to get out ahead of my skis, and they knew that I wasn't going to get ahead of myself. And then, you get better at it and better at it and better at it, and you start to develop a wider range of skill sets and substantive knowledge, and it just sort of builds from there. But it definitely starts with doing the hard work, asking the questions, and having people who are there to support you and answer your questions, and then make sure they give you opportunities to demonstrate the skills that you're practicing. And if they don't give them, you have to ask for them.
Right. So going back to like intentional versus unintentional decisions, was the idea of, you mentioned mentor, was the idea of finding a mentor, like was that an intentional decision, and how do you go about doing that?
So I think some mentoring relationships come up sort of organically, and some of them you have to seek out. I think it's also important to note that there's a huge difference between having a mentor and having a sponsor in a career like this in particular.
What does that mean? What's a sponsor?
So a sponsor is somebody who is willing to put their credibility and their power on the line to support you when you're not in the room. Okay. Someone who's going to advocate for you, someone who's going to support you, someone who's going to say, this person is critical to my practice. This person is very important to these clients. This person is, smart and hardworking and all that. That's great. That's necessary, but not sufficient. You need someone who's going to say, but, she does this very well, or she's special because of this. And I'm saying that I need her in my practice. So what she wants for her career, I want for her career too.
Right.
And it's hard to develop that relationship, but you need it. You absolutely need it. Mentors, I think you should have as many as you can find. It's a great way to meet people outside your practice group, meet people outside of the legal field, develop better relationships, deeper relationships with your clients. You need people who are going to help you navigate difficult moments in your life and in your career, and that's what mentoring is. And you have to be, aware of what they need and give back to them, and make sure that it's definitely a two-way street. A sponsor relationship, I think, you have to be intentional about developing it and making sure that whatever you're asking for from someone in that role, you need to give back 10 times more.
Right. Any tips on any hacks on how to do that?
So I I developed a great mentoring relationship with the person who ultimately became my sponsor. But in order to make him my sponsor, I became absolutely critical to his job, his career, his day-to-day activity. If there was something he didn't want to do or something that he didn't enjoy doing or something that would just alleviate, he didn't have time to do, something that would alleviate a little bit of the burden on him, I did it. It didn't matter what it was, if it was a deal I was working on, if it was something I knew how to do, if it was admin related, whatever it was, my goal was to make sure that he knew that if there was something he needed to move off of his plate, I was the person that he was going to move it to. I was going to handle it. I was going to ask questions if I needed to, but I was going to do it the way he wanted it done.
Right.
So, I used to walk into his office and sit and just listen to him on the phone, even if he wasn't talking to a client on anything I was working on, and just sort of absorb some of that and pay attention. But, then when the client has a follow-up later in the call, I can handle that.
Right.
He had a big stack of bills, I remember one day on his desk. He's going through bills, hated editing bills. And I just took them and I said, I'll edit these, right? These are not deals I'm working on. I have no idea if the entries are correct,
right,
but I can edit them for typos. I can flag entries that look like they might be misbilled. I can flag entries that look like they might be too much time for a particular task. I can flag where a narrative doesn't communicate to the client the value that we added in that particular case, which is the point of a time narrative, not to record tasks. But all of that, helped him get through his day, and he started relying on me more and more. And, we had a good personal relationship, but he would then, he would go out of his way to introduce me to clients and bring me along on pitches, give me speaking opportunities and presentation opportunities and leadership opportunities. And he put me on the associates committee and made sure that people at the firm who were important knew who I was, because he wanted to make sure that as we got closer to a point in time where I was going to be up for promotion, it was an easy sell. And he made it as easy as possible. I mean, I did the hard work, right? He did a lot of the hard work too. But I worked really, really hard to both substantively and more generally become critical to his practice and benefit his practice. And it made it easy for him to turn around and say, I need her.
Right. You made yourself indispensable.
Exactly.
Right. Like, think about you a lot of times, right? Mikey does that. Mikey does that really well. Like, when you started with us 2 years ago.
2.5, yeah.
Right. And there are some questions that will get asked to Mikey over and over again. Same questions over and over again by other advisors on the team because they know you'll handle it, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So exactly. I think it speaks to, what I also think it speaks to is the relationship side of the business. Like, again, going back to like that just trope of like, you're going to graduate first in your class, get the highest grade in the LSAT, then get into the right, match with the right law firm, get the right position you want. And then it doesn't all just open up for you, right? Then you have to actually create those relationships that will allow that to open up. Yeah. So you do that within the firm. And then from a client point of view, were you able to put yourself in position to create a level of origination, and how does that work?
Yes. I think you have to be, but origination means a lot of different things. Business development means a lot of different things. I think the sooner in your career, the earlier in your career that you start practicing different business development tactics or techniques or skills, the easier it is to find your way of doing it, the way that's going to work best for you. You have to remember that your clients are people. This is a relationship business, like you said, but your clients are stressed as well. Right. They're in a high pressure environment. They could probably call a lot of good lawyers out there, right? They should call us, but they sometimes make the mistake of calling other people.
We're gonna get to the plug.
But I tried to think about it sort of the same way that I developed that sponsor relationship. What do they need from me right now? Right. Do they need a joke? Do they need to take a deep breath? Do they need me to get just laser focused in on the issues? I learned very quickly, how to distinguish a business issue from a non-business issue. And you send a client a list of business issues, quote unquote, I put that in air quotes, and it's 25 questions.
Right.
That is not helpful. They do not want to see that. They don't want to answer 25 questions. So I start, I ask more about, what is the goal here? What is the investment thesis? What is the reason that you're making this investment? Why do you like this company? What do you not like about this company? What are your concerns about this company? And you hear answers that are not change this word on this page or increase this amount or, change this reporting deadline from this to this. You hear, I'm worried that their systems are not totally up to speed yet. And so then I know that there are a number of different places in the document where I'm going to have to reflect the fact that they need more time to deliver financials, or their accounting, might be a little squishy at first. But if the goal also is to build the company organically, I know that they're going to need more runway. So, maybe not requiring them to pay down debt as fast would be a good thing for them. These little things, maybe it's an acquisition story, right? They're going to roll up a bunch of smaller competitors. Then I know they're going to need a lot of capacity to fund those deals. They're going to need additional committed financing, but they're also going to need, wider berth to explore different investment opportunities and not be punished for that. So if you start talking to people about what their goals are and how they're feeling, honestly, about the investment, the deal, the process, whatever it is, how the lenders are even treating them when I'm on the borrower side, or how the sponsor's treating them when I'm on the lender side, which I do both sides of the deal. You can hear a lot more. You have to just think about asking questions a little bit differently. But it fundamentally goes back to the same thing. How can I become indispensable to your business?
Right.
How can I help you understand what your business needs are even, and then get you there? Right. On this deal or any other.
Yeah. I mean, I keep hearing from what you're sharing, both in the firm and then on the client side, just the human element of all of it. I think back to my days, my short days doing estate planning, and you'd have this form that you give clients with like 25, 30 questions to get all their financials, and you get one of two responses of, I'll get to this later, or I don't know.
Yeah.
Because they're not going to fill out the form. They know, but you got to prod and poke and kind of get there and get the reasoning behind it. Mike and I were talking a lot about kind of the changing of the industry. We were discussing, like you said, Harvey before, right?
Yeah.
Like AI. You want to ask about that?
Yeah. So I know when we spoke, Sam, initially, you had some thoughts on AI. So we'd love to learn like what you think the changes are going to be in Big Law with AI coming.
Is it a threat?
It might be a threat to people who don't, add a lot of value, candidly. I don't think that means younger attorneys. I think that AI, if properly utilized and deployed and trained and monitored and all of that, I think AI is something that can really change the efficiency game. Certainly, it can make younger attorneys more efficient, but I also think that it will make them better.
Okay.
I think that it will make them better younger, because the quick answer is something that they can get from AI, or we can use our AI programs to generate a quick answer. It's not going to take 5 hours to review a bunch of contracts in a diligence exercise. It's going to take a half an hour, and then you have to figure out, what's the point here? What am I actually telling the client? And I think that they will start to have to be trained in a way that gets them to see the practical issues, the commercial issues, the risks, and the possibilities sooner in their career, as opposed to learning by processing through documentation and spending more time doing it. They'll spend less time doing it, and they'll have to get to a better result faster.
Right.
I also think it will make us more valuable to our clients in some ways. I think McDermott spent millions of dollars and is spending tens of millions of dollars more on developing proprietary AI products.
Right.
We are very much leaning into innovation in a way that we think will be not something that will replace lawyers, but will enhance the experience of our clients in working with lawyers up and down, the stack. So perhaps we could do deals more efficiently, which means we could do more deals. Maybe clients are doing deals faster because they know that we can, churn out issues, or we can run through diligence faster. We can highlight issues and risks associated with a particular investment sooner than we otherwise would have, and they don't have to burn $1 million getting to an answer on something that we could have found out 10 weeks ago. Right.
Yeah, it's interesting because, again, we have such an old business model here.
Right.
There's going to be transition.
Right.
But a lot of people are so fearful of transition, which I think is not just Big Law. It's endemic to everybody going through transition. But I think in Big Law, you feel that a lot. We get the question a lot, especially in the younger, you point out younger associates, we get a lot from the younger associate side of things. And also, even should I go to law school? Like, is this whole model going to change? But I think to your point about critical thinking and all that coming forward, I think is super important. When we met, we had also discussed kind of the, I guess, responsibilities and the realities of being just a woman in Big Law and a successful woman in Big Law. You had mentioned, I think you called it being at the table and using the table, I think was the term you used, which I loved a lot.
Yes.
Can you tell us more about that?
Yes, I can.
I mean, we're at a table, but
we are at a table. We are at a table. I would say I think that earlier in my career, very early in my career, I noticed a couple of situations in which I was clearly invited into the room or to the table because I was a woman.
Okay.
And you can take that personally. You can be offended by that. You can be put off by that. You can say, oh, they only want me here because I'm a girl. You're there. Be at the table. If you are invited into any room, into any situation, for any reason,
right.
It doesn't matter why, you should have a goal. You should have a reason that you want to be there, something you want to get out of it, something you want to communicate, something you want to extract, whatever that is. But be there. Don't be sitting in the corner, dejected or pissed off or offended or whatever it is. You got yourself in the room. It doesn't matter in a lot of ways how you got there or why you got there. I also think we tend to make a lot of assumptions about why we're in that room, right? I don't know that I looking back on it, do I think that's why it was that I was invited into those rooms so early in my career because I was a woman? Maybe. Now when I look at it, I think maybe it's because I was just really good as a junior associate and I was being rewarded for doing something good or showing promise, or they wanted to introduce me to clients earlier in my career. So you can try to put a bad spin on it, or you can, be offended or skeptical, or you can be nervous about it, or you can lean into it. I hate using that phrase, but you can you can take that opportunity
lean into the glass ceiling and break it, right?
To make sure that you're getting something out of it. I mean, worst case scenario, they put you in the room because you're a woman. So go get something out of that room because you're a woman. And now I say, listen, there are a lot of ways to get to the table. Take every single opportunity that you can, take every invitation that you can to get to the table, and then use the table and use that experience at the table to figure out how to get to the next table. Ask people in your circle, your mentors, your colleagues, whatever it is, ask them, how do I get into, I want to do this next. How do I get there? And then you have a roadmap. I mean, big law is scary sometimes. It is black box sometimes. It is opaque. It is, nobody will tell you this is how you get promoted to partner. Right. This is how you get promoted from income partner to capital partner. There is no playbook.
Right.
But you don't have to figure it out on your own. In fact, you shouldn't. You are part of a team. You are part of a firm. You are part of an office. Ask the people around you, this is what I want. How do I get there? What do you think that I need to do? Where are my blind spots? And then do those things and fix those things. And then you should be at every table.
Right. So it goes back to that asking questions idea, right? Yes. We get that all the time, right? Everything's so fluid and even, right? Cravath scale, Milbank scale, everything's going to work the same. And then counsel, then partner, income to equity. It's a black box, right? Like, how do I get there?
Exactly. And it takes a different amount of time for different people. And sometimes that's related to that person. And sometimes it's related to something entirely different. But find that out.
Right.
What is the prospect here? I want to get to this position. What is my prospect? What's the timeline? How do I get there? Can I go faster? What happens if I don't get there on time? Is there a second shot? Is that going to happen for me? How can I put myself in a better position to get there? What do I need to do? Give it to me straight. And you have to be willing to listen to that and ask those questions about where your strengths and weaknesses are. You have to ask a lot of different people, but you have to find a way to get yourself at the tables that you want, and then use the tables, and then move on to the next table.
Right. So using that table, right? Any life hacks that you can share in terms of just whether it's in the firm or outside the firm in terms of client side, just being able to start that conversation. I think for a lot of people, it's very hard to say, let me cross that line. Let me initiate that conversation. Now I'm in the room. How do I get there? Again, there's a million different ways to slice it, but is there anything you rely on, or is it just your natural personality?
I listen first. I try to pay more attention to the human element of it. When I'm networking, when I'm talking to clients at a reception or whatnot, I don't usually talk a lot about what I do specifically. People know that I'm a lawyer, I'm a private equity lawyer, I'm a finance lawyer, whatever it is. I want my clients to feel like they want to call me. They want to pick up the phone, that I'll be able to answer their question. If I can't, I'll find somebody who can. So it's more about listening to what they are worried about or they're thinking about. I ask a lot of questions about, what's top of mind these days? What keeps you up at night? Why did you come to this event where we both are, right? I spent a lot of time when I was a sort of more senior associate, junior income partner, going to events or talking to people who weren't directly in my practice group. I didn't go to a lot of finance. I mean, I went to a lot of finance events, obviously, but like, you go to a real estate event and now you're the only finance lawyer in the room.
So you're the different one, right?
You're the different one. You have something to say, but you have different questions for people. I'm not talking about real estate. Real estate is great, amazing. I'm sure it's fabulous and very interesting for the people who do. It just doesn't really interest me in terms of the legal side of things. But I can ask a slightly different question about risk management or growing a portfolio or what are the particular issues involved in XYZ, and they can talk about what they do in a slightly different way, and you get them to open up in a slightly different way or find a different point of connection. I think that appeals to people a lot more than hearing about deal terms.
Right. It's also, I think, a lot of it's being comfortable in your environment. We met you at an event at McDermott, and the beautiful offices that you guys have now. They served amazing food, but really good gummy bears. Don't judge us on that.
We have great snacks.
Yes.
Great snacks. Great bar, great snacks.
Yeah, really, and a beautiful view.
And we know how to throw a party, and we have an incredible office.
Really incredible view, incredible office. And I think what you shared with us and what was just clear in the conversation today is there's a culture that you at the firm itself that seems to be excellent. You've, like many attorneys, you've been other places. We're not going to name names, right? But like, what is it about McDermott that makes you so happy? But also, what are they doing to create a culture of success?
I don't know that you can create culture.
Okay.
And I think that is something that actually McDermott is very clear on. The first time I met our chairman, Ira Coleman, who is by far and away the best leader I've ever seen in action, he told me that culture is what you tolerate. So if you are participating in an environment, if you are leading an environment, if you are a member of an environment where people are mean to each other, they don't care about each other, they're only focused on, dollars and credit, and there's sharp elbows and people are competing internally even for, client access or client relationships, that is your culture. Then it doesn't matter how many snacks you put out in the pantry or how many extra days off you give the admin staff. That's what your culture is. And so we don't tolerate that effectively. So we have tried very hard to make sure that we are focusing on things that we think make us better people, not just better lawyers, because if we're better people, we are better lawyers, that build good client relationships that are based on mutual respect, but also, we're deal makers. Obviously, they're deal makers. We bring them deals all the time. If we're going to do something, we're going to do it all the way. We're always striving to make the firm better. In fact, our motto unofficially is #always-better.
Okay.
It's also the Wi-Fi password.
We're going to cut that.
It's something that we're always looking to do better for our clients, but do better for our people as well. And that's top to bottom. We do a quarterly happiness survey, polling everybody in the firm about how happy they are, what they're happy about, what they're not happy about, what suggestions they have, and the things that
cold brew in the cafeteria. Like, what are the big ones?
I hope it's anonymous also then.
It is anonymous, unless you would like to leave your name. And we do a global engagement survey. We're constantly trying to seek, or to solicit input and feedback from everybody in the firm, top to bottom, to make it a better place. Always better is absolutely, it's not only our motto, it's how we actually practice and operate on a day-to-day basis. But the idea is not just to be always better in terms of the numbers. The idea is to be always better as a group of people who are building a business together. Because it's hard. The business is hard. And being in big law is not easy. And people burn out and they feel underappreciated and overworked and stressed and lost. And everybody has imposter syndrome from time to time. We try really, really hard to mitigate the impact of that, to give people space to be themselves. Authenticity is incredibly important at the firm. It's too hard to show up at a job like this every day and pretend to be someone that you are not. You will immediately lose focus. You will not be able to do the things that you need to do. You won't make real connections with people, with clients, and with each other. So Ira talked a lot the first time I met him about building a partnership that cares about each other. And the financial results flow from that. And I think that's borne itself out, certainly. I think we're the fastest growing law firm in the United States for the past 7 or 8 years. And it's because we put time and effort into listening to people and caring about them, showing them that we care about them.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds so simple in some ways, right? It's empathy, right?
It's common sense, but it's not common.
I like that. Right? I was going to say the no assholes policy, but I like that better. All right, common sense, but not common, I guess, which is why you've had such a successful time at McDermott. We really thank you for coming in today. The honesty you shared with us, the transparency, the pulling back the cloud of kind of in the box of what progressing in big law is like. So we really, really appreciate the time today. Shameless plug for our Law Fin team. Working with big law attorneys across the country on their personal finances and their wealth strategies. But really, thank you, Sam, again for coming in, your time today, and we'll have some more gummy bears in the future.
Amazing. Thank you so much for having me. This is great.